Feels weird to me that there might ultimately be this potential star player there at that pick, and you've got the pick, and you're just like, well, he doesn't want to play here.
Dude.
Like I get the fight, but if I really think he's that good, I feel like the conversation about him from day one has been like, well, he's not gonna play for the Wolves, and he doesn't really want to talk to you, and he's not gonna show you. It's like, okay, that's all fine, but you've got this pick.
I get it, but I think here's how I would deduce it. I mean, you're right in that you shouldn't be sort of bullied around by agents and whatnot. Like if you feel like he's the right pick, and if he's head and shoulders above, no pun intended, because he literally is head and shoulders above the other players. Then like ordinarily you should just make the pick. Like, no, dude, we're turning this franchise around. We know this is going to be a good fit, et cetera, et cetera. But in this case, hold on. Hey, Dex, I think you got your volume on there. There we go. Okay. In this case, he's not necessarily clear cut the best player in the draft, right? He is one of a few players that has big upside, but also question marks. And so if he's not willing to give you the full medical information, okay, that makes it a little bit tough. What if the Golden State Warriors have some information that you don't, and they're also going to pass on him because of that information, but you don't know? Like, and then the other thing I would say is the idea, like if Wiseman and Edwards both panned out to their absolute best potential, right?
Yep.
I'd rather have Edwards. I'd rather have the wing player who's, 225-pound freight train who can get his own shots and whatnot and can shoot from outside.
Uh-huh.
Now, his shooting percentage from outside in college was pretty atrocious, but some of that was shot selection. I mean, a lot of it was just like he was the only good player at Georgia.
I just don't want to be controlled by agents and players when I'm in the controlling position. I
hear you.
It bothers me, and this is supposed to be, from the Wolves' standpoint, a new administration and a new start. And this feels very much like the old, yeah, but you can't take this guy. Yeah. To which I would work very hard with people I pay behind the scenes to get all the information that I need.
Like private investigator or something?
Well, I mean, he's clearly got...
Sneak around?
Well, yeah, but I don't like being controlled by people who are going to tell me that I potentially can't take a kid who might be the best player when I've got the pick to take the best player.
I hear you.
It bothers me.
I hear you. I like where I land on it though is if Anthony Edwards becomes like the best version of himself, and if James Wiseman becomes the best version of himself, there's still a really good chance that Anthony Edwards is the player that you would want for the next 8 to 10 years. But I have a couple other things for you here before we have to write that down. Predictions on the show today. ESPN.com.
I want a mock
has the Wolves taking Anthony Edwards, but that's not the most interesting thing that ESPN.com posted today.
Reckless speculation.
They have an article entitled, and just inject this whole thing into my veins, by the way. This is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The article is 7 big NBA trades that we want to see this week.
That's genius.
Oh, my God. And the first one out of the gate is a Timberwolves trade.
Okay.
The Minnesota Timberwolves would trade the number 1 overall pick, James Johnson, Jarrett Culver, and Jake Layman to the Washington Wizards for Bradley Beal.
Reckless speculation.
Now, before we get into their explanation and everyone else's thoughts, I just want everyone to know that if this trade was available and the Wizards signed off on trading Bradley Beal, which they have not to this point, I would do this in a heartbeat if I was the Timberwolves.
Yeah, read me the explanation. I'd be curious to hear what they have to say to justify it.
Yeah, Andre Snellings from ESPN.com says the Wolves have 2 cornerstones in Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell, but they need a third star to truly build a contender.
True.
Bradley Beal has proved to be one of the better shooters/scorers in the league and could match with Towns and Russell to build a potent outside-in offense. Plus, Beal this is the key for me, because a lot of these other names like James Harden's available and Russell Westbrook's available. Bradley Beal is still young enough at 27 years old to remain at his peak as Karl Anthony Towns, who's 25, and D'Angelo Russell, who's 24, reach their peak. All of that, and so Beal would still be at his peak for like 5 more years. All these guys would be in their primes, and you could go on a run here if you built the rest of the roster right.
Mm-hmm.
It would give the Wolves a shot at both immediate and long-term success. The Wizards are in need of a rebuild, which requires young talent and financial flexibility. This deal gives them all those things. The problem is the Wizards have not looked in the mirror with realistic expectations yet. They think we're getting John Wall back. We're going to run this thing back for the 7th time with John Wall and Bradley Beal, or we're going to trade John Wall. And I think there's been some James Harden rumors and stuff.
John
It's
Wall,
but like, even if you do that, let's say you run it back with John Wall and Bradley Beal.
Yep.
That team is nowhere near like top half of the Eastern Conference. And even if you somehow finagle a trade for James Harden, and now you've got Beal and Harden, I still don't think that team is as good as the Heat, the Celtics, what the Sixers could still be. So, like, the problem is the Wizards are still clinging to hope that we can still do this with Bradley Beal.
Yep.
And they're going to come to the realization at some point that that's not going to happen.
I love this idea, and here's why. I still contend that there is an inherent pressure on the Wolves, who are for sale, that goes well above their basketball administration goals from a business standpoint to be relevant coming out when we do of the pandemic. Like, the competition for the sports dollar in March was huge here, right? Now you've got people who have taken pay cuts, companies that are in very difficult financial positions. And at some point in time, we're going to have fans back in stands, and every one of the teams in this town is going to go to corporations and to fans and be like, buy suites again, right? And they're going to be like, no, thanks. If I'm the Wolves, if I'm the business side, if I'm Glenn Taylor,
or whoever is the new owner in 2 months.
Or the people who are talking to Glenn, I think the trade needs to be this. I think you need to start with your entire first round. I think because you just gave me a list of names, but you didn't, without a clear-cut star in this draft. If I'm the Wizards, I'm not getting enough. I'm getting people back, but I'm not. But for Beal,
I would do that too.
I'm not getting.
Honestly, I would do that.
So if I'm Gerson, I have the business administration, the people that own the Wolves behind me saying, you don't want to do this, and I don't care. 1 and 17 are the starting point of what you are offering, and then Culver as well. But if I'm Washington, I need more, and I need at least the Wolves' entire first round tonight.
Now, Washington, the other reason they would potentially say no is that, and I'm not going to pretend to have studied the 2021 NBA draft, but people who are smarter than me have looked at it and said there's a couple like more surefire stars at the top of it. And so they might be thinking, listen, if we're going to unload the Bradley Beal trade chip, we get one shot with it. We want more of a surefire top pick, but there's no guarantees because there's a lottery, right? There's no guarantees that you would be able to get the number 1 pick from whoever has it.
Yes.
You would be able to trade for whatever they get in the lottery. Now, you could wait for the lottery to be established and then swing a trade, but the further you go along, the less value Bradley Beal has because the less term is left on his contract. I would also avoid making decisions based solely on how to sell tickets, but if winning games helps you sell tickets, adding Bradley Beal to Karl Anthony Towns and to D'Angelo Russell helps you win more games, thus helps you sell more tickets.
Absolutely. But the point is, Phil, I don't think you have the luxury of saying we are the basketball side and we can't be concerned about the business side. If you had that, it's gone now. You're going to start your season with no fans. Revenues are going to plummet and be down. At some point, when fans are allowed back in, you have to start to recoup that. And if you're the Wolves, Phil, and you're still saying, okay, this is going to be great because we got 2 more years to build this thing up. Fans, who, by the way, are taking pay cuts themselves, and corporations are hurting as well, are going to say, see you later. I don't know that ignoring the business side at this point is an option. I really don't. And you have to win games. And if you have D'Angelo Russell and you have Beal and you have Cat, at least now I've got a really exciting product to try and sell because I'm going up against the Wild. I'm going up against the Twins, the Vikings, the Gophers. Yeah. So there's the competition now for the sports dollar is going to go from being incredibly intense to being brutal.
Look, I think you and I are technically speaking the same language, which is like, what's the best move to get this team to be relevant and win? It's just that, like, my entry point, I think losing franchises like the Jets think about, how can we make a splash and bring Tim Tebow in to sell tickets? Like, no, you should make moves to build a winning franchise.
Right.
And then that leads to tickets. Yes. So
Westbrook,
we agree on that.
Westbrook, no.
Yeah, no. Westbrook would sell tickets.
But I'm not doing that one.
But you're not making the playoffs,
right? But I'm going to give Washington more.
So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I mean, think about like this trade won't happen, but it might happen next offseason because the Wolves are going to have assets. Just think about the idea of Towns, D'Lo, and Beal all in their prime. And those guys don't play a ton of defense, but then with the other two spots in your starting rotation, you find a couple 3-and-D swing guys that can defend anyone. Like, oh my God.
Absolutely can find those guys, I think.